Hello, old friends. Where to begin? So, I promised an update to those of you who follow me on my Facebook page. I think the last time I updated was March of 2018. So, let's back up to even before then. So, back in the winter of 2018, I was trying to do the dating thing. And as some of you, I'm sure, know, when you're a single mom, it's hard to find time to go out and meet people. It's not like, you can just do Tinder and meet up with people whenever when you're a single mom, because you have to find a babysitter, and it's like it's not really worth it to just like go out and meet people, like whoever invites you, and see if you like them and if there's chemistry and all that stuff. And like, trust me, I tried to like mingle and like meet people in the natural way, but I don't get out much. Like, I work from, like, I leave home at 8 and I get home at 6, and when do I have time to like go out and hit the bar? So when I had free time, I wanted to spend it with Ellie, so I wasn't really like getting out there and mingling with people. And like, when I was getting out, I was with Ellie, and I think it's harder to approach somebody with a kid because people just assume that you're married. And long story short, I'd been on like OkCupid and whatever else for a while, and it wasn't going well. And my dad was like clearly hoping that I would meet someone good. So for like Christmas, for an early Christmas present, or Valentine's or something, I don't know, my birthday, so June 2018, he sends me a check titled Love and Romance for Match.com subscription. Now, tell me that's not depressing, right? Like, my own dad has to send me money for a Match subscription. Not to say I didn't have money for it myself, but I just hadn't like stooped to that level yet. So I did it, and I didn't really meet anybody. I just didn't really have time, and like, I was finding that like I would talk to these people for like a long time, because of course you want to establish that they're not like some creep before you go out and meet them. And like, I was like spending like months like talking to these people before I was like, okay, I guess we can meet. And then I'd meet up with them, and they'd be like, they wouldn't have their license because they had a DUI and like weird shit. And I'm like, this is not happening. So then I was like, okay, I was talking to my friend Carrie. She came over and we were hanging out one morning, and I'm like, I'm just wasting my time like talking to these people, because then I meet them and they're not who they say they are. So she's like, well, you should just start meeting people more. And I'm like, well, I don't have time. So she's like, well, I'll watch Ellie for you tomorrow. Go meet someone like for brunch. So I was like, okay. So the first person that like I've been talking to like invited me out for brunch. And I was like, okay, well, Sunday brunch, like harmless. And they chose this place that was like really fancy, like seafood and live music, like in a really nice part of town. So I'm like, okay, probably not the sketchiest. Sorry, I just ate dinner. And I have a cold, so I'm sinus infection, congested. But anyway, so I go to this place, and again, this is like winter of 2018, and I'm like, like, I get like decently dressed up, and like had Ellie with my friend, and like drove like 25 minutes out to this place. I show up, and he's not there yet, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm a little bit early. So I sit down, and I'm like, order myself like a Bloody Mary or whatever, and I'm waiting. And like, of course, like I noticed right away, the first thing I noticed when I walked in was that the floor manager, I didn't know it was the floor manager at the time, but was really attractive. And like, I'm pretty picky. I'm not gonna lie, like, I like the artistic type, but like, I also look for like someone that's like more put together, because I have a kid, so it's like a little bit, I need like the best of both worlds, like a mature man, but also like a little artistic edge. And so like, I see this guy and I'm attracted to him, which I don't find a lot of people that I like walk down the street and I'm like, oh, that's an attractive guy, and I'm immediately drawn to this person. And I'm sitting there waiting, and the fucking guy stood me up. And that's the first time in my life I've ever been stood up. And I'm sitting there just like, are you serious? Like, looking at my watch, like, texting the guy, like, are you coming? Because, like, I've been waiting here for a while now. And then I'm like, all right, this guy's not showing up. So I'm like, the waitress keeps coming to my table, and she's like, are you gonna waiting for somebody? I'm like, yeah, I'm waiting for somebody, but they haven't shown up yet. And she's like, what happened? And I told her, I'm like, I just fucking got stood up on like a online date. And she was like, oh man, that sucks. And then she's like, obviously talking to her manager, and he like comes over to me and he's like, oh, what happened? And he said, I just got divorced myself, and I was thinking about like doing the online dating thing, but like this makes me not really want to. And then we started talking, because I was like talking to the people next to me because they had a baby, and we were, for some reason, started talking about Ellie and like how I raised her in Japan. And he like overheard that and was like, oh, you lived in Japan? Like, that's so cool. And he's like, I'm really into bonsai, and he like loved Japanese culture and like was all into bonsai stuff. So we started talking, and like he kept going back and like having to work, and then like coming back to my table. And meanwhile, I'm texting my friend, and I'm like, there's this really hot guy here, and I just got stood up, but like, should I give him my number? And she's like, yeah, give him your number. So I'm like, I've never like have to give my like a guy my number without like at him asking me first. So I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like, is it kind of like weird that I'm like gonna give a guy my number? But then he came back, and when he came back to talk to me again, I was like, would it be weird if I gave him my number? And he said, oh, I've actually got mine written down for you right here. And he gave me his number, and we've been together since. So that is Nate. And again, we'd already been dating at the time that I did the last update, but I just didn't really talk about it because it was still new. And he hadn't, I don't know, he might have met Ellie at that time. Probably had. Yeah, he'd met Ellie. But, like a social media thing, And anyway, fast forward, July of 2018? No, 2019. No. Then it must have been 2017 when we met. Yeah, I'm sorry. So I was saying 2018 this time, but I was wrong. So I made that update in March of 2018. I met Nate in 2017. Yeah. Anyway, timelines get a little blurred here. But in 2018, June, I got pregnant with Nate. And at that point, like, it wasn't really planned, but we already were, like, talking about engagement and things at that point. Like, we were pretty serious. So for us, it was like, I mean, it was still like scary as getting pregnant is, but we both knew that we wanted to be together, so it wasn't a hard decision for us to make. And I was pregnant with a girl, and we had her in March of 2019, and her name is Isla Rose. Isla is an Irish name. He's like mostly Irish, and it means from a strong place. And actually, it's a lot of different things that we chose. That's the reason that we chose it, but also it means a lot of other things that we like it also means, I guess in Hebrew it means like the rings around the moon, and it also means like an oak tree. And like I said, Nate does bonsai, and that's his favorite kind of tree. So it's like all the meanings of it, and other languages too are also things that, we liked. But also, like, I wanted to pick a name that meant something. And I feel like a lot of female names are like beautiful and from wealth and things that are like kind of old school, like I wanted it to mean something, and I wanted it to reflect strength. And so I picked Isla. And it also means I is love in Japanese, and it's easy to translate into Japanese if she ever wanted to like go with Ellie in the future to Japan or whatever. So Isla, I will introduce you to her after this, was born in March, and Nate and I waited to get married. We were engaged already by the time she was born, but we waited to get married until after she was born because we wanted to just focus on like her and saving our money for like having her and all that, and then save for a wedding. So we had a wedding in August of 2019, and we've been together since. So, and obviously most of you who followed me, all of you who followed me have seen like my life with Ellie, and so I'm sure you're interested into what's going on with her as well. So I'm still working for the same company that I was working for before. It's a Japanese automotive parts company here in Metro Detroit, and Ellie's still in her Japanese immersion school, and she is doing beautifully. She loves Nate. I waited to introduce him for a while and like made sure that, you know, like he was somebody serious for me, and that he wasn't just going to be like a temporary, you know, fling. And they hit it off immediately. Like, he's always done an amazing job with her, and then when he moved in, I wouldn't say there was ever really any like rivalry or problem, like to hatred towards her stepdad. But I think also like Ellie was pretty young, so I think she's like really accepting and loving as an individual, as well as just like that age where she was just like more open-minded. It's not like a teenager or preteen that's like, that's not my dad. Like, that never really happened. Like, she continues to have a good relationship with her father in Japan, and she still talks to Suki on Skype like probably once a week, and he still sends her gifts, and they still like write and talk, and their relationship's fine. And then Nate is like, she says to him on Skype, like, my other dad. So I think that's fine. Like, and as far as like traveling to see her dad, well, Isla's still young. Isla's 9, almost 10 months old now. So, like, it's still the age where, like, I don't mind, I wouldn't mind flying with her, but, like, I feel like with work schedule, I only get, like, X amount of days off, so to, like, fly there and, like, travel for a week and then come back, I think that would be really hard on a little baby. Like, when I used to travel with Ellie at that age, we would come back to the States and we would have, like, a good, you know, like, at least a month to a month, 2 months, usually. Sometimes 3, like, in the States, where she would acclimate, and then when we went back, you know, we lived there, so, like, she had that time. But I feel like going to Japan and then finally getting to the point where you're acclimating to the time and then having to come back and acclimate again, that would be really hard on a little baby. So we've talked about it. Like, Nate really, like I said, he's really into Japanese culture and stuff, so I think he really wants to go, and I think we will take Ellie to Japan to visit her dad, but it would probably be more like we take her and drop her off with her dad so that they have time, you know, to spend with just them, and then we would probably travel, but it would probably have to be like at least another year or 2 from now. And then until then, though, we have discussed like other things, like maybe her dad could come like to Hawaii, which is like the midway point between like us and Japan, and, you know, Ellie could meet up with him there, and they could have their time together. Or, you know, we've talked about him coming, like, to Detroit Airport, which, you know, is, like, a major hub for flying out to other regions of the States. So, like, they could meet, he could pick her up here, and then they could go where they wanted to go. So, like, we're not at all, like, opposed to, like, discussing other ways of them meeting until we're able to travel to Japan. So, I mean, all in all, the last time that we went to Japan, so my update was March of 2018. In July of 2018, Ellie and I went to Japan, and that was the last time that we were there. And we stayed for, I think, 2 weeks, specifically to visit her dad. So, I mean, that went well, as to be expected. Like, you know, it's, like, we try to make it about her and like what she wants to do. Like, I mean, like, I would never like go and be like, oh, I'm gonna spend time with my ex-husband, yay, hurrah. But you know, there's tense moments for sure, but like we make it work for her so she has that time with him. So I'm not gonna delve too much into that, but we make it work. So I mean, that's what matters, right? I think she, you know, I think it's important that she knows that like her biological dad wants to be part of her life, and like he does actively, like I said, like communicate with her and send her things, And I think it's really important that she knows, like, she's not, you know, he didn't just forget about her. Like, when we divorced, like, he's actively involved in her life, and as is her stepdad, Nate. So, oh, I forgot a major thing. So, Nate was working at the place that I went to eat at, which is like a upscale small plates seafood restaurant in like a nice part of town. And when I met him, he was like serving and bartending and floor managing, but he was promoted to general manager of that restaurant. And then which I don't know if you guys know, but like when you're managing a restaurant, like it's like he was working like 6 days a week and probably like up to 12 hours a day, but like between like 9 to 12 hours a day. Like he was working a lot. And like I didn't really get to see him a lot, and like when he did have off, it was never Saturday or Sunday. It was always like a weekday, and like most of the day he was like recovering from working such long shifts every single day. So that was really hard. And he worked up until I had Isla, and then we decided prior to having Isla that given like our work situation, like it was better if I kept working. And like actually it was something we talked about before I even had Isla, was that like I'm happy with my career, and like I'm like moving upward in my career, and like I wanted to have more kids. And this is actually something we talked about before we even got pregnant, which is funny because like I guess when you have kids and like you're serious in a relationship, like you want to make sure that you guys are on the same page. Like I would never want to be with somebody that didn't want to have more kids, because I already knew that like I definitely wanted to have more kids. And we talked about it, and I was like, you know, I would be okay with both of us working, but I know that I want to keep working because like I don't want to sacrifice my career. Well, he was like, I've always wanted to be a dad, and I've always wanted to be, I would be totally okay with being a stay-at-home dad. Like I like think that would be really cool. Like I'd love to take care of the kids. So like that was awesome, because like I've done both. Like I've been a stay-at-home mom, as you guys know, and like it's not an easy job. Like that is a full-time job, and like I work full-time now in a very professional atmosphere, and I will tell you that has its challenges, but being a stay-at-home parent is way harder, like emotionally and mentally and just all the way around. So all the respect to you guys, and like not to say I wouldn't want to do it again, I would, but I'm in a place right now where I can provide, and like I respect that he was willing to like stay home. And yeah, we could like both keep working and put her in daycare, but I have Ellie, and it's not a private school, but the before and after care is handled by a private preschool within the school. So I pay premium before and after care. So I was paying about $500 a month for her to go to school early. So like basically to drop her off a half hour early before her school started, and then to be there from 3 to 6 Monday through Friday. I was paying about $500, not to mention to add in daycare for a baby. Like that is so expensive. So like even if him and I both continued to work, most of his salary or a lot of his salary would have to go to that. And it's like, is it worth it to bring in just like that little bit of extra money and have your kids raised by somebody else? So we both decided, like, you know, if I'm capable of doing it, then why not like have him stay home? So we decided that's what we would do, and that's what we've done, and it's been awesome. Like Ellie gets picked up, instead of getting picked up at 6 o'clock every day from school, she gets picked up at 3, and she has time to do her homework and relax before I get home. And I come home as much as I can. Like I come home from work. I live pretty close to my work, so I come home for lunch, and I'm breastfeeding still, so I feed her at lunch, and I feed her, you know, I pump at work still. I only solely breastfeeding. Like obviously now she's like 10 months, so she eats food too, but like up until this point I only breastfed. So I'm just lucky that I have a job that, I mean, I guess like legally they have to allow me to like pump for a year, but like still I never got to that point. Like they've been more than accommodating. So yeah. And I did take maternity leave for 3 months, So, and it's not that like my company offers like paid maternity leave for that long. They don't. Like him and I both like worked really hard to save up so that we could do that, and then I took the family medical leave and took maternity leave for 3 months with Nate, and then he took over and I went back to work, and I've been at work for I guess 7 months, and it's been good. So why don't I introduce you guys to my baby, and you can see Ellie and Isla, and meet Nate. Just say hi, I'm Nate.
Hi, I'm Nate.
Right over here. Say hi.
She said hi. Good girl.
Good baby.
Okay. Say hi, Ellie. She says I'm gonna smack Buddy with my bunny.
You can smack Mommy with your bunny. Oh, yeah.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Not clap clap. Bye bye. Isla. Bye bye. Mama. Clap clap. Yay. Yay head. Yay.